Hi everyone, welcome back to Eye of a Needle. This week I have a sermon prepared called Words, Words, Words. What I'm trying to project this week is how important it is for us to guard our words. The book of James has been the core of that challenge, which has been the biggest challenge of my life. I've always been a big talker, telling stories. As I said in my first intro video, I was known to tell a tall tale, tell stories all the time about crazy stuff, vulgar things, relations with ladies, fighting, just crazy testosterone stuff. Now, the last 20 years or so, my stories have been based upon Jesus. But I fall off and I have challenges. So this week really made me dig deeper back into the book of James, because this is a lifelong challenge and you never solve it. But the closer you get to the Lord, the better you get and the more aware you are. Now, this is a little bit different than what the world is telling everybody. They're canceling people's businesses, ruining people's careers, etc., for something people may have said a generation ago. But people that have come out and said that they have been challenged by race and different things and been honest have been the ones that were the best served. Now, bottom line is, the book of James is a big deal for me because I came forward and I used it in the core of my life. I used it when I got engaged. One of the greatest days of my life, I asked this woman to marry me. I put the engagement ring in the book of James because I knew that the book of James was paramount for me. If I didn't improve in that, I couldn't be a very good Christian. And at that time, I was on fire for the Lord. James speaks very clearly about us mastering our tongues, and it says, frankly, that no man can master his tongue, but it talks about the consequences if we don't. James talks an awful lot about this, and it all manifested itself there, where I gave this woman a brand new, beautiful Bible, and I said, maybe one day this will be our family's Bible. Why don't you open to the book of James? And she did, and she opened to the book of James, and there was an engagement ring in there, and I dropped down to my knee and asked her to marry me. She started crying. I wasn't sure if she said yes or not, but the bottom line is, I think that answer is evident after 21 years of being blessed, children, etc. But I still am challenged, and this past week, I knew I needed to preach about this, and I still had challenges with a choice that I made, so we'll discuss that. The blessing money that I keep for people, in case, God forbid, there's somebody needy, is also kept in the book of James. And I think that that's important because I always want to be thinking about improving when it comes to this. My daughter has told me multiple times that she loves the fact that I'm always trying to improve myself. I'm always looking to get better. And in this, I'm always looking to get better because the Bible, through the book of James, speaks clearly about that small little spark can cause a forest fire, okay? And that's words. That's what they're referencing. And a small little scenario, if controlled, can bridle a horse, through the power of the tongue. So we need to get to the point where we're constantly working on that. Now, obviously, this is something that will never be solved and is an ongoing process. If you're in traffic and someone cuts you off or stops short in front of you, you may say a bad word. The closer you get to God, the odds are you're going to make choices not to say a bad word. You're going to have a replacement word. But this week we've had so many talks about words that it's remarkable that God was telling me this is what I had to preach. So it certainly confirmed it. But it's been my biggest challenge. And I think that the key as a Christian is James talks a lot about words, but it's in the context of actions. So you could be a Christian and say, oh, bless you, have a blessed day, be blessed, all that. But they're going to see you by your actions, and you're going to be known by your actions. So do your actions match up with your words? And, James speaks a lot about if you don't bridle your tongue, for example, James 1:26, then your religion is worthless. Now, I don't like the word religion because that refers to a set of laws you have to follow. And if you don't, then you're on the outside. Jesus has already put us on the inside. But I don't want our walks to be worthless. I don't want us to be using vulgar language and bad things and have people see it and then not want what we have. Because the most important thing, as you know, is Matthew 28. And when in 19 and 20, Jesus told them to go make disciples and spread his gospel all over the earth, That's the priority. So if what we're doing is affecting that priority, we are failing. So to start off, to make this very simple, whenever I've been with the affluent, a lot of powerful businessmen, many of them have used really bad language. And I've noticed that when I don't use bad language in their presence, they may curse at me and tell me to stop being a baby, stop being a girl. They'll use all these horrible words because I'm making them feel uncomfortable by not swearing. So whoever knew that me growing up could actually have success? Now, when I have that success, what they wind up saying to me is, it's no big deal swearing. It's not really a sin, is it? It's not in the Bible. Well, yes, it most certainly is. And the examples that James gives is he says that blessings and curses should not come from the same source. So we walk around and say, bless you, bless you. But then if we drop an F-bomb in traffic, does that make it okay? No. We have to constantly try and search and search ourselves and do everything we can to get better. Now, this week I had the ultimate challenge because I was in the car with my daughter and I was listening to rap that was fun rap from the 80s. And I grew up loving rap. I loved all things that were African American. In fact, I had a lot of people come to me and call me a wigger and all kind of other names and say, you know, isn't white music good enough? And when I went into the military, same scenario. I had a lot of people ask me, why am I hanging out with the African American soldiers so much? There's so many things about their society that I love that I thought I'd be without reproach when it came to race. But I was rapping this song and I said the N-word that was in this song. Now the word ended in an A, not ER, but nevertheless, it was an individual speaking about himself in a song by the Ghetto Boys that was talking about a nightmare he was having, and it was about Halloween. I thought it was kind of cool, and it was a little racy, but I thought it was okay for a teenage daughter. But when I rapped that rap and I said that word, she was horrified. So I tried to have a conversation with her and further the conversation, and maybe it could be a teaching moment. And I was explaining what the words are and what they mean and how they end and, you know, what should be used or what shouldn't be used. And the bottom line is we got into an argument where I said the word because I was trying to explain it, and she said, you can't even say the word. If you even say the word, you're a racist. Well, I thought that was crazy because I was trying to explain how bad the word was, but that wasn't the context I was using it in. And through this entire scenario this week, I've really been able to analyze myself and look at myself. And whenever I said the word to try and explain something, she actually physically ran away. So I was offending her by trying to explain to her that it was just a lyric written by a black man singing about himself, and me, 35 to 38 years later, was singing that same song because I like it. I like his culture. I like what he was doing. I thought it was creative. But the bottom line is this is a different day and age. And if any of those words offend anybody under any circumstance, I mean, my daughter is as white as you can get, but she heard the word and just ran. So I wasn't using the word against anybody or being racist, but the bottom line is it offended. And contrary to the cancel culture, this was personal. And this was something that I knew I should have said N-word and not actually used the word, but I was trying to explain the ending and all this stuff. My point is it became a quagmire, but I learned a valuable lesson. We don't want to do anything that can take from someone seeing us as a man or a woman of God. We don't want to do anything to offend anybody because bottom line is we need their attention on positive, wonderful gospel love. And if anything we're doing is drawing attention away from that, then we're wrong. So I was wrong. And what my daughter couldn't understand is that I didn't even know I should say N-word. I never heard that as far as that's the context. I thought if we're having a conversation about why it's wrong, etc., we can go forward. And obviously, I probably shouldn't even have been rapping in the first place. But I was trying to bond and show something I thought was great from when I was a kid. I certainly wasn't saying anything disparaging or anything negative about the black community. But the bottom line is that word itself, when it came up and out of my mouth, even if I was explaining or not, it hurt my daughter's feelings. So I realized I needed to have more common sense. I needed to have more feeling and more touch. And the book of James is clear about that these fires can be lit. And I don't want to light fires. I want to put fires out. I want to invite people into the kingdom of heaven. I want them to understand how great Jesus is, how spectacular he is, and what he does for relationships. So the last thing I want to do is cause problems. And as much as my wife and I are dedicated to helping, and we love the black community, and we're involved with churches that were multiracial, and we have sponsored children and all that, all you have to do is offend one time, even if it wasn't in the context of offending, and that's it. And so my point is, whether that's right or wrong, It's not for me to judge. I don't want to hurt anyone's feelings. I want to be a good person. So I share this personal story because I think it's important that you look at this and you say, okay, wow, that's interesting. We know Matt is not a racist and he's involved in this and that, but that doesn't matter. We have to examine ourselves all the time in traffic, using F-bombs, swearing among friends, talking vulgar and dirty. All these things cannot coincide with blessing. James speaks specifically that brackish water cannot run alongside clear water, and salt water does not run in the same spring that spring water does. And behind me, you see this gorgeous Lake Williams. This is our water that we drink in York County. And it's part of Lake Redmond, and it's the York County water system, and that is one of the best in the country. So for me, I see there's clear water behind us, and it's purified. But if it was salt water, it would be a much more extensive process. And we wouldn't judge the two together. All you'd have to put is some salt water in there, and it all becomes salt water. So I don't want to sully the water. I don't want to dirty anything. I want to honor God. I want to profess God. So I want to learn from my daughter. I want to learn from my big mouth. And I want to constantly steer in the right direction, because James talks about steering the boat. And what is it used for, the steering of a boat? A rudder. So everybody, this week, think about our words. And I'll end with this. Genesis 1:3, God said, "Let there be light." Let me say it again. God said. It was his words that created light on earth and in the heavens. And there's absolutely no reason on earth we can't do better with our words and work to purify and seek righteousness. Because James says actions are void if you do not have this wonderful grace and mercy and love. Okay? And if you have the love, people will see the actions. It works together. So work as hard as you can to seek God, because that will help you clean everything out. And bottom line is, I've forgotten over and over through my videos to invite people to accept Christ. I'm acting as if everybody has, but obviously they haven't, and that's one of the big parts of my ministry. So I've failed. So please accept my apology. I'm right now saying, if anybody does not know the love and the joy of a relationship with Christ, I ask you to repent, do a 180 degree from the way you're living, and go all in for Jesus. Find a faith-based church, get a King James Bible or whatever version you feel you can relate the best to, and read it and understand that this life is amazing, and Christians that are observing God are amazing and helpful and loving. And do everything to guard your words. I love you guys. Have a blessed week.